My name's Enda Murray. I'm the director of the Irish Film Festival. I'm delighted to be joined by Chris Baugh and the director of Boys from County Hell. Chris, you're very welcome.
Thanks a lot. Great to be here virtually.
Tell us what inspired the story Boys from County Hell.
Inspired the story. Well, it really the very kind of initial sort of kernel of the idea was the desire to do something that felt very authentic to where I'm from in the north of Ireland. So like something that felt authentic to sort of the backwoods of Tyrone, but to do it in a genre setting, or a horror context. And I've always loved the vampire genre, so it seemed like a good fit. And then as we got deeper into the sort of writing of the script and the research of the script, we discovered this legend of Avertac and the connection to Bram Stoker and all that kind of thing. And it just really felt like a very rich mythology to try to tap into and use, and also use as a jumping off point to kind of create our own or augment of what was already there. It all seemed to fit. So it was a sort of development process, but that was the very initial idea. And it was kind of something that me and my producing and writing partner, Brendan, whenever we started our company, that was our goal, was to do Irish genre films that felt authentic, in terms of place and character and humor, but that hopefully could have a life beyond these shores, because we were doing them within the architecture of genre movies. Like, so our first film was a revenge thriller, this one's a horror, so on and so on, kind of thing.
And how long have you been working on it? You wrote a short of the same title back in 2013. Is that?
Yeah, I've been working on this script for a very long time. This was a very, very early kind of idea that I had whenever I was just starting to write features and make movies. And it was one of those projects that kind of was on our slate and was always there, and we were always developing, at the same time as we were off making other things. So in 2013, we had a version of the Boys from County Hell feature film, and we decided that we would make a short as a proof of concept to sort of take out to financiers and show what we could do. And I think we were maybe slightly naive in that we expected we would make this short and we would take it to Cannes and show it to people, and they would give us £2.5 million or whatever as first-time filmmakers to go and make this feature. And that didn't happen, obviously, because we hadn't made a feature at that point. So we had to go off and make our first film, which was Bad Day for the Cut, first, obviously. And off the back of that and the success we had with that, we were able to sort of leverage that success into getting Boys from County Hell financed, whatever that is, 8 years after we made the short. But it was still a good experience. It was a good learning experience. And the biggest thing that came out of the short was that we met Nigel O'Neill, who plays Francie. That was the first time we worked with Nigel. And then obviously it was in our first movie, Bad Day. And he was always, throughout the process, he was always going to be the character of Francie. So that was, it was worth doing the short for that alone, even if it didn't get us the money right away.
And tell us the title. Was that any relation to the Pogue song by any chance?
Oh, yeah, that was always just a homage to one of my favorite bands of all time. Just always seemed to fit, as a homage to them. So.
And tell us a little about the casting of the movie. So you already had some people in mind.
Mm-hmm. Well, we had Nigel in mind. So Nigel as Francie. And then with the rest of the casting process, it was the process that you usually go through. You audition actors, and so like Jack, for example, Jack Rowan, who plays Nigel's son in the film. We met him in London, and he was actually an English lad, but he came into the casting room and was like, "Oh, my father is actually from Northern Ireland." And I was like, "Oh, really? No way. Which part?" And he's like, "Oh, he's from Tyrone." "Oh, really? What part of Tyrone?" "Nigel's from Tyrone." And he's like, "Oh, he's from Coke, little town called Coke." And that's where Nigel's from. So it turned out Nigel actually knew Jack's family, and Jack had been coming to Northern Ireland his whole life, and he knew the humor and he got the relationship and the type of humor we were going for right away. And then he did his reading and kind of blew us away. So we cast him, obviously. Louisa from Dairy Girls, again, like I loved her work on that show, and she came in and met and was phenomenal as well. And we cast her. Mick Hawk, who actually lives in Toronto, but is an amazing Irish actor. He did a reading over Zoom, and he actually did it in a Northern Ireland accent, his first tape. And then I met with him over Zoom and got chatting to him, and he kind of, just his whole presence and his accent, he's from Offaly, and the way he chats and his accent was like, you know what, just I'll rewrite the character as like a blow-in and let you do it in your own accent, because it works so well. And then John Lynch, you know, who's obviously a legend. I had worked with him before on a TV show, and we just offered him that part. And luckily enough, he agreed to do it.
I was going to ask you about John.
Yeah, no, I knew John, and I'd worked with him on a show called 10 Star, and me and him got on really well. And the part of George Bogue, which just always seemed tailor-made for him. You know, I hadn't written that part with him in mind, but after I had worked with him, I was like, he'd be a great George Bogue, and we just sent him the script, and he liked it. And you know, I think John, actually, you know, he enjoyed the opportunity to do some comedy as well. You know, obviously it's a very kind of, you know, he has very serious moments in the film and great emotional moments, but there is a kind of playfulness with Francie in their scenes together, and John really enjoyed that, being able to sort of stretch those comedic muscles, because I think he can be very funny, like. So yeah.
How important was the location to the telling of the story?
In terms of like where we shot, or actually the location within the story?
So where you shot?
Where we shot? Yeah, no, it was very important that we had somewhere. You know, the film itself, like 6 Mile Hill, is kind of a fictional, you know, mid-Ulster kind of Tyrone type version that me and Brendan have kind of created for our movies, but we couldn't shoot up there, you know, for logistical reasons. So we shot just outside Belfast near Larne, for the work site stuff. Found a really beautiful sort of piece of farmland up there with a great mountain sort of above it, and you know, great. You know, we wanted it to have that sort of epic, you know, ancient sort of landscape feel. You know, and these guys, and then the juxtaposition of these guys in heavy machinery, kind of cutting a big scar through it. So that was very important. Unfortunately, it was a bit of a wind tunnel that location, and we did get blown off it one night in a storm. But you know, that was fine. We just kind of regrouped and came back. And then the rest of the stuff, like, so 6 Mile Hill, the town itself, was Glenarm, which is on the Antrim coast, and then all the other interior stuff was shot in Belfast in a studio, mostly in the studio.
What kind of visual style were you looking for? Do you have any films in mind that you were looking to pay homage to?
It wasn't more like one specific film, but it was more a feel of like 80s horror, in terms of, I'm not trying to be like nostalgic or that kind of thing, but more just the tangible nature of those films. Like there was no CGI back then. Obviously, they felt very real in terms of their, you know, grittiness and griminess and tangible kind of quality, and also the nature of the practical effects, which was a big thing for me, which was trying to do as much of the effects, the monsters, the blood, trying to do as much of that practically as possible with as little visual effects or CGI effects. So that was a big thing for me, that we could try to, you know, pay homage or at least tap into that sort of 80s aesthetic without it feeling like a parody or a caricature or a, you know, a real nostalgic kind of over the top reference to it. And it seemed to work because the nature of the story is obviously kind of gritty and down and dirty with these kind of roughneck guys and machinery and, you know, landscape and dirt and all that kind of stuff. So it felt like it, you know, became its own thing as we got into shooting it.
What were some memorable occurrences during the shoot?
Memorable occurrence? Well, actually losing almost a whole day due to weather, but that's sort of, you know, standard for Northern Ireland. The whole shoot was very fun in terms of it was hard logistically, and it was hard in terms of we were outside at night, low budget, trying to shoot a lot in a very kind of tight schedule. But the cast were so brilliant and the crew were so brilliant that it was a lot of fun. Everyone kind of bought into what this was supposed to be, in the sense of camaraderie between the crew and the cast, which I feel comes across on screen, which was really important for me in terms of the story, that these, especially the core group of the boys, felt, like they were really all pulling for each other, and they kind of, they were a close-knit group of friends. I mean, one thing that was kind of cool was we spent a lot of time on the design for Abertac, and a lot of time sort of casting the right actor, finding the right company to build that. It cost a lot of money, it took a lot of time. But for me and Brendan, it was always like, listen, if we're making a vampire movie and we're going to have this kind of head vampire at the end of it, it has to look amazing, even though it's a low budget film, because a lot of times with this sort of stuff in low budget, it can fall down if the creature doesn't look great, or the effects don't look great or whatever. So whenever Millennium Effects, who built the prosthetic, and Robert came over to do the camera test, the makeup test, we were actually shooting in the studio, and I was shooting some scene in George Bogue's house, and got called over to the makeup truck to look at the first test at Robert in full makeup. And me and Brendan opened the door and kind of just like had a shock moment, and then I did literally almost start crying because it looked so good. I was like, this is, and then he walked on the set, and like the whole crew just kind of went very, very quiet and very still, and then realized he was wearing like bedroom slippers, and then it became less scary. But seeing him for the first time was a really, really cool moment.
What were the biggest production challenges for you?
Production challenges, trying to do this like the level of stunts and effects that we wanted to have in the movie, and trying to do them practically, and trying to do them within the confines of not only the budget but the schedule, the tight shooting schedule that we had, because doing practical effects can be very fiddly and very time consuming, and if you don't get it right the first time, the reset time takes a while. So you can burn a lot of time doing that stuff. So for me, it's like, well, we hired really good people in those departments, and I kind of prep it all to the hilt and storyboard everything meticulously, and try to make sure that everyone knows what we're doing in terms of that stuff. And it was challenging as we were going through, but it never felt like it was insurmountable. It was just always like, this is going to take a bit of time, but we know we can do it. We know we can get it. And if we do, like Francie's leg, for example, at the end, that was all like the piece that this is the people have seen the film at this point, right? This is not a spoiler. We had built like 3 separate breakaway legs, and the guys had put like layers of sinew and kind of muscle and all in there, so that whenever it pulls, you actually see, you see the skin kind of ripping. And it took a while to get that, but we got it in the third go, and it was totally worth it, because whenever you see it with a crowd now in the cinema, like they do cover their eyes and kind of freak out at that moment. So it was worth doing.
What do you hope audiences take away from the film?
I just hope people, feel like they've seen. Well, first and foremost, I think people just enjoy the ride, because it was made to be, an exciting kind of fun, Friday night horror movie. But deeper than that, I kind of hope that people see it and feel like they've got a glimpse into like a reality of a very specific part of Northern Ireland. And this, because I think that, again, that's, for me, that's very important, that people feel like that the way these people talk, the way they are, their humor, their lives, how they interact with each other, it feels authentic and real, which is what we went for, and what I hope we've achieved.
And
obviously that's obviously, in terms of the character, not in terms of the vampires. that's not real, obviously.
For you, what was the most enjoyable aspect of making the film for you personally?
I just love, like, the effects and the stunts and all that stuff is all fun, but really the most enjoyable, it's working with the actors. And once the actors really get get a handle on their characters, and everyone's kind of, you know, popping, and the chemistry's all there. Like, one of the most fun days we had was the scene just after they discovered William Bogue, where they're all sitting around drinking a cup of tea and kind of chatting about, like, you know, and Francie can't show his emotion and everyone's kind of laughing at him. Like, that was just a real fun day because all the actors were there, everyone was on point, everyone was kind of was having a good time, the chemistry was there, the humor was there, and it's just, whenever you have days like that, it's a lot of fun.
And I believe you've just opened in Northern Ireland. What's the first responses been?
Seems to have been good. Like, the reviews have been good, and you know, people have been going to see it, which is the main thing. I try not to, like, you know, once the film's out there, it's out there. So I try not to kind of, you know, sit around on Twitter or whatever too much. Like, you know, I'm trying to get the next thing going. You know, once the film's out there, it's out there, and it belongs to everyone else now. Like, but we were just really happy that we were, you know, with the pandemic and obviously, you know, and everything, that we're so happy and grateful we were able to get it into the cinema, you know, and get a release across Ireland and the UK. So it was in, like, you know, a bunch of screens over in the UK and in Ireland as well. So that was always our intention, was for people to see it on the big screen. So we're very happy that's been able to happen, and people have had that opportunity to go see it in a big, you know, dark room with a bunch of strangers.
And what's next? Have you got anything?
Myself and Brendan, who my co-producer, we have a few things going on. Nothing we can really chat about at the minute, but we'll maybe do another Tyrone genre film at some point down. It'll not be the next one, but at some point down the line, we might do another one. But yeah, we're writing, and we have a bunch of things in development, and, you know, I hope to be shooting, you know, very shortly on something.
Right. Thanks a million for taking the time. We're in lockdown here, so we're looking forward to seeing some stories from home. However, whatever shape or form they might take us, we'll enjoy them. Stuff. Thanks a million for your time, Chris.
All right. Thanks a lot, Anna. Cheers. Thank you. Thanks. Bye.